Commissioner Phillips is here. Three, so we are ready to begin. So if you would like to introduce yourselves, and the floor is yours.
Yep, excellent. You're good.
I can start. My name's Erin Small. I'm the training and recruitment coordinator for CASA of Lancaster and Lebanon counties. CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates.
I'm Kristen Antrim. I'm the Lebanon County Program Specialist for CASA of Lancaster and Lebanon counties.
Jeremy Stahl, Lebanon County resident, and the single board member of Lancaster Lebanon CASA from Lebanon County. So very important to me from a competitive standpoint to represent Lebanon County.
Well, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
So I guess I'll just start and share with you a little bit about the history of our program and what the role of our volunteers is. And then, we can be pretty casual and open it up to any questions you might have. So CASA dates back to 1977. And it started in Seattle with a dependency court judge who had seen a need in his courtroom for someone else to be a voice of a child. He had felt that many of the children that came before him in his hearings or in his courtroom who were in a very traumatic experience, and through no fault of their own, had found themselves there. And he thought that volunteers would be a good source of people who could speak for that child. And so he eventually reached out to the community and created the process that's very similar to the one that we use today to recruit and train our volunteers in the two counties. That then grew into a program that went across the United States. We now have more than 900 programs across the country that are supporting children who are in foster care. In 2005, President Judge well, it was the one before. Anyway, Leslie Gorby was appointed to head a steering committee that then over the next 4 years, they put together a group, created CASA as a nonprofit organization, hired an executive director. And then in 2010, we took on our first case in Lancaster County. So we celebrated our 15th anniversary in Lancaster County last year. That continued, and we've been serving children through our volunteer organization since then. And then in 2019, we saw a need in Lebanon County. Several of our volunteers were Lebanon residents and had asked, why are we not serving cases in Lebanon County? And we recognized that Lebanon County was a smaller program, would be a smaller program due to it's just a smaller court system than Lancaster County, and perhaps might not be able to maintain their own CASA group on their own. And we saw an opportunity, and then so Lebanon County was launched and took on our first case in Lebanon County in 2021. So currently we are serving across both counties 100 and candidate post-it note that I forgot to even have. We have 114 volunteers assigned to 219 children across both counties. And Kristen, you want to talk a little bit about our Lebanon numbers a little?
Currently, we are serving 26 children in Lebanon County by 19 active advocates. And the last number I heard of in January, Children and Youth provided that there was about 120 children in care currently.
Yeah, and so the role that our volunteers play really is as a community member who brings a common sense and objective perspective to a case where a child has been abused or neglected. We operate under what we call best interest advocacy. So our whole role of what we are paying attention to is the child, what are their needs and what is in their best interest. It's a little unique than some of the other legal parties that might be involved in a court case involving your child. The Children and Youth Agency, their legal mandate is to work towards reunification. And while that is often what we also believe is in their best interest, there are times when the CASA might differ in that understanding. And so that gives an additional voice and just an additional perspective that is then represented in the courtroom. And the focus is on the child. Sometimes some of the proceedings, the focus might be on parents and what progress they're making towards getting their children back, which are all great work and we need to be paying attention to. But the CASA will always keep their focus on what is in the child's best interest. So what our court order does we work here through the dependency court system through Judge Jones, who appoints CASAs to a case. And that order gives us access to pretty much anyone associated with that child's care. So our CASA volunteers go out and visit with the child in their home or where they've been placed at least once in 30 days. And then they can speak with anyone else who's associated with that child's care, whether it's a teacher, medical professional, parents, and really they just gather that information and present a report to the court anytime that the child appears in that court. Because every 6 months they need to appear in court just as a review of how things are going, what progress is being made in order to returning that child to their family of origin. So, our advocates work in a lot of different ways. They represent the child's interest for educational needs, medical needs, and really just one of the major benefits we see of having a volunteer assigned to each child is that they are just a trusted, consistent adult that is showing up in the life of that child. And one of the things that we know from the research about children who have been impacted by trauma is that one of the top protective factors for children is having a consistent, trusted adult in their life. And so CASA is serving that need for the child, where there might be some other changes. They might have a change in placement. They might have a change in caseworker. But hopefully this CASA is that trusted adult throughout their time in care. So that's kind of an overview of what we do and what we see as our volunteers' role, but we'd be glad to answer any questions you have and share our perspective about anything. Right. Yeah.
You may have touched on this, but if you have 19 advocates and 26 children, is there any time that you would ever have an advocate with two? I know you said ideally it's one, but is there ever a time when the need would be?
So sibling groups,
Okay.
we have, that's why you see that difference in number. We try to assign only one case or sibling group, either one child or sibling group to an advocate. And that's one of the beautiful things is they're focused on that one child or sibling group where a caseworker might have, 15 cases. So they get to really get to know that child and what's going on in their life because that is their main focus is just that one child or sibling group. So you see that difference in those numbers
I just
mostly
assumed
because of
that we were
siblings.
trying to recruit more volunteers to meet the 26, but I get it now with the siblings. thing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, where we're trying to meet is like I said, the last number I heard of children in care is 120 children in
Right.
care. And not necessarily that every child needs to have an advocate, but children and youth make referrals to us and Judge Jones makes referrals to us. And I recently got one from an outside agency that was a third-party placement agency that recognized the benefit of having a CASA for a child and had reached out to make a referral. So we get referrals through different sources. We just want to be able to have enough advocates for every child that could benefit having an advocate. We'll have access to one. I just received an email from the judge's secretary last week asking if I had available advocates, and I had to say no, not at the moment. I did not.
I would imagine your screening process is pretty thorough and how long does it normally take to get through
So,
that?
yeah, that's a good question. So we do require all of our volunteers to go through a screening process. They have to have 3 different clearances, criminal background, national background. We run a whole bunch of checks. But then in addition to that, we do a training. So each of our volunteers goes through 30 hours of pre-service training that teaches them about all of the factors that might bring a child into care so that they understand that. We give them opportunities to practice role playing and thinking through the factors that they might have in a case. So yeah, it's a 7-week program total that we have each of our volunteers go through. I'm actually I just taught my last class and we're doing a swearing in ceremony for our winter class. We offer 3 training classes per year, 2 of them in Lancaster and 1 in Lebanon. So our Lebanon class will be starting in May. And so we're actively looking for folks to join that class with us. It is open to all of our classes are open to anyone who's serving in either county. We train them all at the same time. We just offer the opportunity to have that different location.
When does a relationship end? Is there an end point or
Great
do
question.
some of them linger?
So what we ask our volunteers to do is stay on a case until they reach what we call permanency. Permanency can look like a number of things. It can look like reunification with their parents. It can look like adoption after parental rights have been terminated. Or it might look like something that's a little bit more of a legal category, permanent legal custodianship, where we're not actually seeing adoption take place, but we are bestowing legal guardianship onto a kinship family member. They're staying in a group home or some other congregate care. So we do ask our volunteers to stay on throughout that time period until it reaches permanency. What that time frame looks like, we say on average about 18 to 24 months. Some cases last longer than that, and then we obviously have some that are shorter than that. There are some times when volunteers continue to have a relationship after a case has officially closed, but at that time it would be much more in a very casual, informal relationship. They would have a legal connection with that case. And it really is case dependent on whether or not the child and their family wants to continue to have that. And it is very much on the family to make that determination as to whether or not they're willing to continue that relationship.
Is there a profile that, you find consistent age?
For our
background
volunteers or
for the advocates? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say if you had asked us that question probably 5 years ago, we would have said it tended to be more retired folks who have the time to devote to this. That's not true anymore. I came on I've been a volunteer myself since 2018. And at that time I had been a stay-at-home parent and was looking, for ways to continue to be rooted in my community, while I worked part-time. Since I've come on staff, and took over training, I would say we're seeing more and more younger people and professionals who are doing this alongside their full-time work. And so it's really, I don't know that I can give you a profile anymore. It's interesting. I love it that now I look out at my training classes and I see so many different types of folks. Because I think we had sort of hit that like people thought that at CASA had to be this, retired person who is doing this work. And I'm really glad to see that we're opening it up and more people are interested in doing it.
And yet there's still a huge need for
Yes,
volunteers.
Absolutely still. Yeah.
They could easily double the number of volunteers here in Lebanon County and still not fill all the CASA appointed children, which, I'm a big investment guy and children are our biggest investment in any community. So I may be a little biased because my mother spent 30 years working for children and youth right here, but
They have
very important. It may have something to do. Very strong influence.
So you said 120 are in care. Obviously, not all of them need an advocate. So that's up to referrals from children, youth, and from the judge, you said.
Correct.
How are they paired up then? How do you decide? Are there personality considerations?
We look at all of that. So we get the information from children and youth, like details about, what's going on in that child's life. Yes. They describe the child and we do take a look at our available advocates and we think who could be most suited. Sometimes it does have to do with placement. Like we have a youth that is placed in Pittsburgh And I thought, I'm never going to get an advocate to drive over Pittsburgh. And I was offering an available advocate a different case. And then I just mentioned casually, and I have this Pittsburgh case that I probably going to have to tell them I can't fill that need. And she goes, I have family in Pittsburgh. I can drive to Pittsburgh. She drives and visits this child. She has for the past, I think, 2 years, has visited this child pretty much every month in Pittsburgh. It's been incredible. So demographic, a lot of our older youth get placed out of county. There's just not enough foster homes. I think if my memory serves me correctly, there's 22 licensed foster homes in Lebanon County. Around 120 kids in care, so the rest of those kids are getting placed usually outside of the county. I have another
It's interesting
advocate.
you say she's doing that for 2 years. That's why my question earlier, I said, I'm sure they form a bond and it's sometimes hard to just
Yeah.
stop it.
Yeah, and if that child or youth wants to continue that relationship, then it becomes a friendship.
Mhm.
So if not driving to Pittsburgh, just big time commitment, but
Yeah.
if it's a local, what's the time commitment of a volunteer if it's a local placement?
We ask that they visit their child that they're assigned to at least once every 30 days. And they attend court hearings, which a review hearing is typically every 6 months. So twice a year, they're asked to attend court, visit with the child, and then, what they can do on their own time. And, in between that is collecting information. So reading school records, checking in with resource parents or group home counselors, checking in with the caseworker for any updates.
And how so if they go to, say they accompany on a doctor appointment or go meet with a teacher or something like that, how do they know, how do those professionals know who this person is?
So we have a court order directly from the judge, that each of our advocates has a copy of. We also, so we usually ask our advocates to carry a copy of that with them, or when they're first reaching out to a school, for example, they reach out to the school counselor and share that court order, which also has, and we also ask them to share their copies of their clearances at that time. So, but I will tell you, a lot of the job of us as volunteers is to, educate others on what our role is and to build that trust.
You get telephone calls
yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, right.
This person claimed they were.
Right, yeah, but the school districts in the county are very familiar with the CASA program. We work really closely. We have some great caseworkers in like Lebanon School District that know our advocates and communicate regularly with them. So they're familiar.
Jim, do you have, we have just for, we have 2 members of media here.
Great.
They can introduce themselves, but I think Jim had a question.
I do, Jim Menson with Lentown. I don't care who answers this, maybe both of you, if you've been involved, but Aaron, you were saying you used to do this on a volunteer basis.
Yep.
And then Jeremy, you say you're on the board, but have you also volunteered and had children or currently have children in your charge?
Great question. So being a board member, I'm not allowed to be a volunteer.
Okay,
So as I mentioned earlier, my mother worked for children and youth for 30 years. I met the executive director of CASA, never had heard of it before. I don't know how many people here have heard of CASA until recently or the organization, but I instantly became attached to it. I was like, this is a mission I need to be a part of. And I was like, raised my hand to become a board member. I'm the only board member for Lebanon County. So that's another thing is we're looking for more board members, period. But I'd like to have more people from Lebanon County join us as well. So currently, unfortunately, I'm not allowed to be a volunteer, but eventually when I roll off the board, I will become a volunteer.
It's on record.
Don't put that right in case my wife sees that, by the way.
Aaron, we're recording that.
Yeah,
that's the lead for the story.
there you go.
So then, Aaron, having been a volunteer, and I assume you've had in the past children in your charge, people get attached when they adopt, even for a short time, a cat or dog.
Yeah.
How in the world do you not become attached? What is your, talk about that process when you're a volunteer and you're giving of your time, and then you have a child for, what you said, like a year, sometimes 18 months, whatever that time period is you mentioned a while ago. How do you not get attached? And then you have the end process, which is the ultimate goal, the program's goal,
Yes,
but then
absolutely.
how does that all work?
Yeah, no, yeah, I mean, it is one of the challenges of the role, I will tell you. I'm a former teacher. I started my career as a high school English teacher. So I used to have 120 children, that I was teaching, getting attached to, really pouring my attention into. And I always felt as a teacher, I couldn't do enough because there were too many of them, right? Um, you know, knew the needs of kids and you tried to meet them where you could in the time that you had them during the day. One of the things that was really great about being a volunteer for me was that I had just that one that I could focus on and really be able to have that intentional way to advocate for them and feel like I was making more of a difference. Do you get attached? Absolutely. Yeah. You build, very strong, connections. My first case, ended up lasting a little over 3 years. She was 14 when I started working with her, and then, signed herself out of care as soon as she turned 18. So yeah, that was a loss. I still know what she's doing in her daily life. We keep in contact on social media. But yeah, it is one of the roles, but one of the things that we have to remember is what brings us to the table, and it is that objectivity. And so just reminding ourselves all the time that we are there to be really, taking all of the people that are in this child's life and being able to listen to each of them and bring that to the table, I think is a really good way to sort of balance that and not get too attached. Because if you just keep reminding yourself you are there to support them and advocate for their best interest, then that helps kind of delineate those boundaries. We talk a lot about boundaries during training too, so.
I was gonna say,
Like,
that's gotta be a big part
Yes,
of
that is
training
like
and
where we go in training and we really define what the role is. We are not a big brother, big sister organization, so we don't drive our children, we don't give them gifts. We really try to maintain that we are there to be an advocate for this child. And yes, there are elements of mentorship that goes into that, but it's not the same kind of personal relationship that you might see in some other roles.
And to add to that, every advocate is assigned a volunteer manager. So I'm that for Lebanon County. I support all of our advocates. And we pay close attention to how they're doing with their own mental health and self-care, and helping them navigate that. Another thing to just add to that, I was a foster parent before I got involved with CASA. And so that I can answer that based on that experience because my heart broke for those children in my care. And I watched all 3 of those kids leave my home with the unknowns. And so, I'm 6 years later, still carry that. The way I look at this is these kids deserve to have somebody have their heart broken for them.
That's what,
Well,
when you spoke to that, Aaron, too, does a child age out at a certain point? You said about she signed herself out.
So at age 18, the child has the decision that they can decide that they would like to leave care. They have that legal right. They have the opportunity to stay in care until age 22. And then they would still be receiving care, services. There's always a plan starting at age 14. The Children and Youth Agency sets up what they call an independent living plan. And so they're planning for that child to be able to have the services in place and the plans in place that they will need to be, successful in their independent.
is there any lower end limitation, like, would you take on an infant?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we serve anyone from straight out of the hospital to all the way up to, teenagers. Yeah.
I just took a case that I'm going to advocate for. It's a 2-year-old child. It can be all ages.
And what about funding? How do you, there's a national organization, obviously, and
So we get very limited funds from our national organization. We do depend on some funding from PA CASA, which is the state organization, but the majority of our funding comes from private donors. And so we are really fortunate that both Lancaster and Lebanon counties have at their core generosity. and just amazing, folks who are willing to support the mission of our organization. So yeah, if I were going to share ways that you can support us as an organization monetarily, I mean, just folks in general across the county, supporting us financially, is definitely a way, and just awareness as much as possible. Maybe, anytime I speak to folks, I'm like, maybe this isn't a heart for you, but as I'm talking, you have someone in your head of someone that that would be great for this work. And just as much as you can share and get the word out, that we are looking for, additional volunteers to meet the needs of the children.
Do you have an annual event or anything?
We do. We have so we have several
Am I
upcoming.
getting ahead of you?
Yes, fine. It's a great opportunity. We have.
How are we doing
of-
on time?
Yeah, we have a couple of upcoming opportunities. We have a happy hour that's coming up on April 23rd that we've got some flyers here for. And so that's just a time to come and learn more about us. And if you know folks who you think would be interested in that, please invite them, bring them along with you. We have a community breakfast every year. That's on April 10th in Lancaster. That's at 8 a.m. on the 10th. And then we have a gala every September. So that's our biggest fundraiser. Last year, it was Crystals and Cowboys to celebrate our 15th anniversary. The Crystal anniversary. It was a lot of fun. We had a mechanical bull and a country band. It was a lot of fun. So I hear that we have some amazing things planned this year as well.
Mary, is
So,
Connie Schaefer still involved in the
Yeah.
organization?
No, I
She was.
missed
She
the
was.
name. I thought it was somebody else.
She was one that I think told me about this organization
About this, or-
a couple years ago.
see, I just learned about it within the past 2 years, so I'm not familiar with Connie's.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, if I may get a word in.
Yeah, please do.
I'd just like to say your passion and your caring certainly come through. And I don't know what is expected except to say that children are important. And I'm glad to hear that it carries through to Lancaster County. But I am curious, how many people are on the board altogether, if you're one of?
Sorry.
Maybe a dozen total,
How many?
about a dozen, I would say. I mean, I don't have that number off the cuff,
I didn't know if it was like one of 5 or
No.
what, one of 12.
but we are looking to add board positions,
Mhm.
and I would certainly welcome more people from Lebanon County so that I had a little more weight. Feel like I jokingly and all in the best interest of all the children, but when I hear the numbers about Lancaster and Lebanon, I'm on a mission to increase recognition in Lebanon and gain awareness. So I want to make sure that we have a fair amount of volunteers and donors as well.
And then I heard 26 children in Lebanon out of 120 children you're serving. So that's about a fifth. So 20% should have at least 1 or 2 more, you're right, from Lebanon to have per capita representation. But
Are you raising your hand? Do you want?
no, I just was calculating,
Yeah.
seeing where you're at. If the balance is there for Lebanon County.
Yeah, I think if we take all the children, I don't know them broken out exactly, but if we take all the children in care across both counties, we're serving about 65% of, children who are in care. So.
Matt, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm Matt Tudmore from Lebanon Family News. You said that you watch out for your advocates, especially with things like mental health, especially dealing with some of these cases that might come in. What does that process look like?
Yeah, so each, as Krista mentioned, each one of our volunteers is assigned a staff member from CASA, and that staff member, they're called volunteer managers. Their whole goal and their whole role is to support those advocates. So they maintain really close connection with them, communication. They attend court hearings with them. They help them write court reports, but a lot of their job is that emotional support, so that we take confidentiality really seriously, and so we ask that our volunteers, keep the the details of their cases private, but the volunteer manager is someone that they can share that with and talk through those issues. We also offer in-service trainings. Each of our volunteers is required to do 12 hours of training every year. And so we offer them opportunities to come in and learn about things that are happening in child welfare. I just did a session last night about educational advocacy, preparing people to attend a school meeting and how they can best support biological parents to help them, you know, if they are set up as the educational decision maker on a case. So that's an example. I offer quarterly times where advocates can come together and sort of troubleshoot and problem solve on issues that they're seeing on their cases. So they have a chance to sort of share with other people. So, you know, we try to be as supportive as possible to our volunteers because we do understand that this work is intense at times.
Would that include any, like, getting mental health resources for any of those?
I mean, we certainly, we do not provide them to those, but we certainly, you know, advise them if those are needs to seek those out.
You mentioned about the 6 months. Is that something that's, is that a written report to the court? Is that a testimony to the court? Is it a private interview or a private meeting with the judge? How does that happen?
They write a report prior to the hearing that goes to the whole legal team.
Okay.
And they also are available to testify.
Okay. Good. And you have handouts, it looks like.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I've got brochures. Let's see.
You know, we're sorry that there's a need for this, but we're,
I know.
does my heart good to know that we have good people, with good hearts that are doing. Jeremy, we have something to come. My mom used to work in children and youth.
Did she
And
really?
it was always, I was, what, a big family, 7 kids. And
One to keep for yourself and one to hand out. to
evening time was
somebody.
very busy, while playing sports and coming and going. But I remember her rushing home and making dinner, and then just, we're in the middle of a conversation and she just started crying. And it took me a while to understand. She was crying because of what she dealt with on a day-to-day basis, seeing these kids that just, you know, were at a disadvantage. And so God bless you. Thank you.
Yeah, and the happy hour is free to attend. We have hors d'oeuvres, everybody gets a drink ticket. It's just a really fun time to engage with the community. And then you'll get to hear more about the CASA program and the work we're doing right in Lebanon. So we'd love to see you guys come and just hang out with us, hang out with the community, and bring a friend.
Well, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Really
thank you.
appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.